Hello and welcome to the playoff edition, the first full playoff edition of Nelly and Nick's Picks. It's just going to be me today for as much slack as I give to Nelly for missing the show. He actually has a pretty good excuse this time around. He was at Wells Fargo all week this week covering the wrestling tournament out there. That was awesome. If you guys didn't see, I'm sure you probably did. IAWrestle had complete full coverage of that event. It was really awesome. A lot of fun, exciting stuff going on over there and just exploding. I mean, pretty much every post they were making was popping off. That was really fun to watch, and hopefully we can do something similar with that come state basketball here in a couple weeks. And like I mentioned before, every single team is in the playoffs this week. Class 1A and 2A, they started their playoffs last week and a little bit the week before, but now 3A and 4A officially begin their sub-state play this week, and so it's going to be really exciting. I mean, from here on out, everybody who's still in it's win or go home every night that you're playing, so a lot of fun stuff going on around the state of Iowa, and this week we got just 4A and 3A rankings. We're going to still put out the 1A, 2A rankings tomorrow, but they're going to be the same playoff rankings that we had before. We're going to keep these playoff rankings all the way through to the end of the season. So this is pretty much going to be our last rankings reveal of the season. It's really flown by. It's been a lot of fun, but it's going quick. So, yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to reveal our 4A, 3A, pretty much the final rankings other than the final poll that we'll have after the state championships. And then we're going to do our Dunks and Dogs. Nelly, he's tied up today, so he does not have his picks in, so I'm going to go over that. And then I'm going to talk about some of my favorite districts for Class 2A, some of those district finals that are going to be played this week. And some of my favorite pods from the 4A, 3A that I think are worth checking out for those of you who maybe are looking for a game to attend. So we'll kind of go over that there at the end of the show in replace of the game of the week. We just don't really have anything to put for game of the week because a lot of the games, we don't know what's decided. So in any case, we'll get to that. And we'll talk about that a little later. So that'll be something we'll talk about later. So we're going to get started here. Our Class 4A rankings playoff poll. Not a lot going on here. 1 through 6, they all stay the same in their ranks, and they're going to be locked in for their position and ready to see. Quick explanation of the 4A sub-states, how those work. The top 2 seeds in each pod of the sub-state, they get a bye into the second round. So, for example, in sub-state 1, Hawkeyes and Council Bluffs are waiting in the second round, and Hawkeyes will play the winner of Des Moines Lincoln and Indianola, while Council Bluffs Lincoln, they will play the winner of Norwalk and Council Bluffs Jefferson. You can find all of the sub-state pods, all of the district pods. We've got graphics for those up on our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook if you want to see every swing one. Or you can also find these on the association's website, bound the website, and all that good stuff. But that's just a quick explanation for how the playoffs work in case you don't know. But yeah. Moving on here to the rankings, Cedar Rapids Prairie, they get a boost up to number 7. Dubuque Senior drops to number 8. They lost to West Des Moines Valley on yesterday. That was like a mid-afternoon game. They played all right. If I was keeping up with the game, and Valley just kind of ran away with it there at the end of the game. But I still think Dubuque Senior is a really good team. They had a really tough schedule this year. I think they'll be a dangerous team here in the playoffs. Dowling goes up to number 9, Johnston to number 10, and Hawkeyes will drop a couple spots to number 11. Muscatine goes up to number 14, and then Dallas Center, Grimes, and Bettendorf, they join the Class 4A rankings. Bettendorf, they were hanging around the bottom of the rankings there for a while earlier on the season, and they're finally back into the rankings here in one of our last polls of the year. So a shout out to Bettendorf as we head into the playoffs. And we will finish up the rankings with Class 3A rankings. We've got pretty much the exact same rankings from last week. The only change is Waverly Shell Rock and Cedar Rapids Xavier switching at number 9 and number 10. I'll leave this up here for a second. I'll go over. Class 3A brackets there's no buys. So it's just as simple as there's 8 teams in every pod, and the number 1 plays the number 8, 2 plays 7, so on and so forth. And like I mentioned, again, if you want to see the pods for all those classes and see who your team is playing, that is available on all the socials, including TikTok. Check us out on the IA Sports TikTok. I'm going to be trying to post more basketball content on there as best as I can. So IA Sports TikTok, you can find us on there as well. But that's going to do our rankings. That's pretty much all we got for our rankings for the 24-25 season. That's pretty disappointing. It's a fun part of the show, but we'll be ready to tackle it next year as well. Still plenty of stuff to cover today. We're going to be getting going on our picks here. But, like I said before, we're going to have tons of coverage of state basketball, the district finals, sub-states, all that good stuff. It's going to be a really fun couple of weeks here to cap off the season. But let's go over the dunks and dogs. Like I mentioned, we're just going to talk about mine, and Nelly can cover his later on. So my dunk for this week is Hawkeyes Northwest. This is when it kind of gets tricky because of these brackets. I'm going to bank on Hawkeyes Northwest to beat the winner of Sioux City North and Ankeny Centennial. That I think that I just have a lot of confidence in Hawkeyes Northwest. That's probably the team that I've watched the most in person than any other team. I went to the Hawkeyes Northwest game. I went to conference crossover. I've just seen these guys a lot, and I'm really confident in the team they have. I think they're really well balanced, and the balance is really good in the fact that they're all really good players. So I like the Wolves. I think they can make a really deep run into the state tournament this year. And my dog, going with Centennial, the team who could potentially see Hawkeyes Northwest after this game. Centennial, they play in one of the hardest conferences. I mean, the CIML, one of the best conferences. It doesn't matter what sport you look at. They're competitive in everything. They were kind of close to the bottom there of the CIML this season. But if you look, they've got some pretty quality wins. I mean, in their wins, let's see. They've got a win over Dallas Center Grimes, who's number 15 in our rankings this week. They have a win against Southeast Polk and Des Moines Lincoln most recently. But I'm going to take them to get the win in an upset. And that's an upset because they're on the road. That is how we do the playoffs. If you didn't see that last week when we talked about it for playoff picks, we do it as the home team would be considered the favored team. So picking on the road would be considered a dog, despite the record, despite the rankings, that sort of thing. So before I forget, I kind of jumped the gun here a little bit. I do want to look at our picks from last week. Here's how it shook out. I didn't realize at the time, but me and Nelly both picked Storm Lake, and they canceled that game. It might have been against Spirit Lake. No, I don't think it was against Spirit Lake. It was against Sioux City East, I think. They canceled that game, so it was no points for either of us. And then, as you can see, we both went 1 and 2. However, if you missed that, like I said last week, playoff picks are worth double. That's the same thing we did with our locks and dogs in the football season. We're going to follow that trend here in the basketball season. So instead of the point system being 1 point for dunks and 2 points for dogs, it's now 2 points for dunks and 4 points if you get a dog pick correct in the playoffs. So I got West Branch correct in my dog pick over Tipton last week. Therefore, I get 4 points. And that helped me get the lead this week. And Nelly took the lead on me, I think, for the first time this season last week. That didn't last very long. I think this is going to be a lot more fun here at the end of the season than it was for me and Cade in our locks and dogs. At least I hope so. But hopefully I can pull away here. We'll get into Class 3A picks for me, and I'm going to get this pulled up on Bound. My dunk, I've got Waverly Shell Rock, and my dog, I have Centerville. So unlike Class 4A, the 3A teams, they all play every single round. There's no buys for any team. So, all right, Waverly Shell Rock, they're going to play South Tama in the first round. Waverly Shell Rock, a team that wasn't really in our rankings for a while there this season. And then they kind of put themselves on the map about halfway through the season. They blew Nevada out of the water, who was, I think, our number 3 team at the time. Beat them 70-42, and ever since then, they have really risen our rankings, going on a 3-game win streak against some of our best-ranked 2A teams with Cascade, Applington, Parkersburg, and Grundy Center. So now here in the first round, they're going to take on South Tama. Luke Frizzell, I think he's one of the best players in the class, a name that I've seen pop up in some of our graphics recently. So I'm going to take I think I'm going to take Waverly Shell Rock to get the win here in the first round. And my dog, I'm going with Centerville. They are hitting the road in the first round to play the Grinnell Tigers. Haven't really talked about Centerville a whole lot this year. They had a solid season at 12-9. They finished the year with a loss to Keokuk, who has appeared in our 3A rankings. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think they're in the rankings now. They're at the bottom. Let's see it. Google Sheet. What do we got? They are not in the rankings. And I know they were in the rankings recently. Before last week's rankings, they were at number 14. That's what happened. Okay, so I was right. They lost to Fort Madison 44-40, which contributed to them falling out of the rankings. But in any case, I'm going to take Centerville to get the upset here in round 1 against Grinnell. Moving on to Class 2A. Reminder, this is the district finals coming up for these Class 2A picks. So if you haven't followed 2A, if you're watching this and you're not familiar with the 1A and 2A playoffs, this week is their district finals, and the 2 districts make one sub-state. And so the 2 district champions will play each other in the sub-state championship to go to the state tournament at Wells Fargo. So it's going to be a really big day on Tuesday for these lower classes, and that's what we're picking on here for these Dunks and Dogs, or those district championships. And all these picks are really going to be for the district championships. We don't really get to pick on the sub-state because, I mean, a lot of these games could go either way, and so we don't really know what the sub-state's going to look like. So, just that's kind of what we're talking about here. So the first pick I'm going to talk about, my dunk, I'm going with Grandview Christian. Man, this team has been lights out all season long. I have had the privilege to watch them twice, and no promises now, but a West Burlington versus Grandview Christian sub-state final might be in my future. More on that later, but Emiliano Barante is a guy we talked about. He is just a stud. He can shoot the lights out from all over the place. He's obviously a force to be reckoned with in the paint. I mean, this guy is the real deal. And Grandview Christian, they have 1 loss under their belt this season, 21-1, and their 1 loss, I don't even remember. It was at the Gilbert Showcase. I was at that game, and they lost to Clear Lake, who's been wire to wire a top 3 team, and they've been number 1 for several weeks straight. One of the best one of the best teams in the class. So a really impressive season for Grandview Christian, and they have quite the test. If they do make it past Pella Christian here in the district final, they have a force to be reckoned with potentially with Mason Watkins and West Burlington to go to the state tournament. That would be a really exciting game, and I'm excited to see how those two games turn out. But I'll move on to my dog pick. Let me pull this up really quick. I think one of North Fayette Valley, one of the underrated teams, I guess you could say, in Class 2A. But what do I know? I don't personally rank 2A, so I don't know a whole bunch. But North Fayette Valley, they're 22-0. They have one of the best players in the state, Rick Cal Reister. That's a niche one. That's a niche reference there. I think only North Fayette Valley, potentially players and coaches, got that one. But if you got it, you got it. Anyway, Cal Reister, he's one of the best players in the state. North Fayette Valley haven't lost a game. They are not in the association's rankings, and they are not in our IAbasketball rankings. So I'm not sure what I'm personally missing, but I am going to go with North Fayette Valley to take on Appleton Parkersburg, who's been in the rankings for a while for us. They are 20-2 on the season, and they most recently lost to Waverly Shell Rock, who I just was saying a bunch of great stuff about being one of the best Class 3A teams. So I think this is going to be a really fun game. Ooh, there's a live stream. I might have to tune in. North Fayette Valley, I don't know, man. I don't know what we're sleeping on. I guess we'll have to see. This is a pretty big test for them. And so, yeah, I'm going to go with the Tiger Hawks to take the dub in the district final. We'll cap off the rankings. Cap off the picks for this week for Class 1A. My dunk, Marquette Catholic, taking on Bellevue to go to the sub-state final. Marquette Catholic's been, arguably the best team in Class 1A. They're not right now. They're number 2. Right? Yes. Marquette Catholic is number 2 in our rankings behind Madrid. I don't think Marquette Catholic has been number 1 all season. However, they're 23-1. They are coming back from a season where they went to the state championship and lost to North Lynn last season and brought back a lot of those starters from that team. They have been looking dominant all season long. Their one loss was a couple weeks ago to Class 4A's top 10 team, Dubuque Senior. This is going to be an absolute beast to take down in the state tournament, and I would be worried if I was going up against Marquette Catholic myself, no matter the round, no matter what that looks like. So I'm going to take Marquette Catholic to get the win there and move on to the sub-state final. And my dog, I've got Bedford in arguably the most exciting district matchup of the week, and I will get more to that later because look at that. I'm only at 18 minutes right now. Things are looking good. I think I'll be able to yap for a little bit about some districts and sub-states. So here we go. I think arguably one of the best district finals of all, 1A through 2A. We have number 8 Bedford taking on number 5 Woodbine. This is going to be an interesting match because both of these teams have they've had lower ranked schedules according to Bound, but they've both they beat everyone, and they both have some pretty solid players. Landon Blum, a sophomore, he's been doing really good, 15 points per game for him. Cal Peterman, he's a finalist for Mr. IAbasketball, and this is going to be a really huge test for both of these teams. They have both been ranked pretty well in the top 10 for a good chunk of the season, and I think this is going to be a really exciting game. However, I think Bedford has the edge here, and I think they will show it out and win this one to go to the sub-state final. So that's going to do it for picks, and I think I'm going to go see if I can go full screen here so that I can talk for a little bit about these districts and sub-states. Look at that. I got it to work. Okay. So now you can see me much easier. How about that? So I want to talk a little bit about, quickly, some of my favorite districts, some places to look out for. I'll start with Class 4. I didn't really prepare any graphics for this, so if you're interested to hear what I have to say about some of these sub-states, and hopefully you'll enjoy this. One that I'm really interested in, a sub-state. We'll start with Class 4. I'm interested in sub-state number 2. Johnston versus Ames are the 1 and 2 in there. These two have been in the rankings pretty much all season, as far as I know. I've seen both of these teams in person, and I couldn't really tell you how they would fare against each other in a head-to-head match. I imagine they've played each other. Wow, apparently these two have never. Well, careful now. I was looking at a different thing. I don't think they've played this season for sure. No. Ames and Johnson have not played this season. I can't really pull up a historical for that one right now. But, I mean, Ames, a team I feel like is pretty underrated for 19 and 2. They've barely cracked the top 10 here in the last several weeks. And they seem to be one of the best teams in the class, questionably. And Johnson as well. Johnson, a team who's had one of the hardest schedules in the state, but yet they've contended to be one of the better teams in the state as well. So I think that's probably one of my favorite potential sub-state finals in Class 4A. Looking at some of these, so I think sub-state 3 could turn out to be pretty interesting too. Iowa City West is an interesting team. They are not a 2 seed. They've kind of been a team who has struggled against some of these, top 16 teams, and they have struggled to win the big game when it's mattered, and that's kind of been a problem for them this season, I guess you could say. But when you have a guy like Jack McCaffrey, a wild card like that, like, you have no idea how any match is going to go. I could see Iowa City West making a run at the sub-state final. I think they have a pretty good, I don't want to say a pretty good chance. I mean, Davenport Central, give them their flowers. They've had a good season. They deserve to be a 2 seed. They did have a loss to Clinton. Shout out to Clinton. I saw that tweet. I'm going to pull it up really quick to make sure I get that shout out in there. They broke, what was it? It was a long losing streak against Davenport Central to end the season. I'm going to look for this really fast so that we can keep moving on. Davenport Central. Oh, gosh. All right, I can't find it right this second, but a 66-game losing streak. They broke it against Davenport Central, who has been in our rankings. So shout out to Clinton River Kings. I got it in there. But like I said, I'll move on. But Iowa City West, a team who could be interesting against Davenport Central, and a team that I think could cause problems for Cedar Falls, who's been pretty much wire to wire with Valley in the number 1 spot all season long. So I think that will be a pretty cool matchup to go to state. All right, let's see. I think that might be it for Class 4A. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got for Class 4A. We'll move on to Class 3A, some of my favorite sub-states. We got to talk about this. The sub-state 4 for Class 3A is loaded. You have Cedar Rapids Xavier, and Wahlert Catholic. They're very similar teams, 2 teams who have had really good seasons. They're both 12-9, and they've just unfortunately suffered from difficult schedules, mostly 4A schedules. And they got lumped into the sub-state with Decorah as the number 1. That is a really tough sub-state. And I think some of those teams, I think it's just going to be a challenge all the way around. I mean, Xavier and Waller, it's upsetting because I think both of those teams, I think they deserve to go past the second round, and it's unfortunate that they have to meet right there in that second round of sub-state, and that's just how the things shake out. I mean, It's a lot of it is out of the association's control, where it has to be geographically make sense. I mean, there's only so much you can do. There's a reason those teams play a lot of 4A teams. There's a lot of 4A teams in the area, and unfortunately, that's just how things shook out. And it's really unfortunate, but I think that it's really hard to make these sub-states work so that teams aren't driving hours and hours to play, unnecessarily long away from where they are at. So it's really unfortunate the way it shook out, but at the end of the day, I know for a fact the association did the best they could with that. And, they weren't looking to screw anyone over there. It's just that's just how the way the things go. Looking at some of these other sub-states for 3A. Ooh, okay. This ADM Pella sub-state, sub-state 7 could be interesting. Pella, a team who's kind of been up and down in the rankings this season. Kind of an up and down season for them, but they've got wins against teams who they just not deserve. Teams who they're ranked higher than, and their losses on the season: Granby Christian, one of the best in 2A; Knoxville, one of the best in 3A; Western Christian, the number 2 ranked team in Class 2A. I mean, these are really good teams they're playing and playing well against. So I think ADM is going to have a tougher time than they may think against Pella. Maybe an underrated team, I would say, for Class 3A. But that's pretty much all I've got for 3A from what I can see. I do want to talk about 2A and 1A a little more than the 4A and 3A, because a lot of the 4A and 3A is just potential sub-state finals, where these are district finals, and there's a lot better chance that they will meet in games to go to state. I'll start with 2A before I move on to 1A. Let's see. Well, I think first we got to talk about this one. Sub-state 5 for Class 2A, District 9 and 10. I was literally just talking about this game. If this shakes out the way it does, with West Burlington beating Mid-Prairie and Granby Christian beating Pella Christian. Now, I'm not saying that this is like set in stone. Like, Mid-Prairie has been a really good team this season, and they've given a lot of really good teams some trouble. Just a couple weeks ago, Mid-Prairie beat Regina Catholic, a team who's been in the 2A rankings pretty much all season. So this is going to be easier said than done. But to have a team like West Burlington, who has Mason Watkins, a McDonald's All-American, paired up with Grandview Christian, who has Emiliano Barantes, a Mr. IAbasketball finalist himself, that would be a really interesting match. And if that goes down, I might have to try and make it out to that one. A lot of these, let's see. I'm trying to find the ones of teams who are like really closely ranked. Okay, so like this one, District 1 and 2, Sub-State 1, Unity Christian, they're going to take on Garner Hayfield Ventura. Shout out Garner Hayfield Ventura. They got a pretty big upset over Emmitsburg in the second round of the districts, and they will take on Unity Christian. Really good team in 2A. And then they will play Spirit Lake if they can take on and beat Osage. And that's another game where it's not going to be so easy for Spirit Lake. Although, I don't know if Osage has really been in our... I don't think they've been in the Class 2A rankings at all this season. It says that they have no historical matchups, so I think this is a real toss-up. Between Osage and Spirit Lake. I'll be really interested to see how that one goes down. I think that pretty much does it for like the extremely notables for Class 2A, and we'll cap off the show. I'm going to run over 30 minutes, but no big deal. It's fine. But let's check it out. Class 1A. Okay, this is going to be an interesting one. The Bedford-Woodbine, the game I talked about earlier, their district is with their pairing is with District 13 in Sub-State 7. And that one's going to be Coon Rapids Bayard versus Mount Ayr. Mount Ayr? I'm going to say Mount Ayr. Mount Ayr, a team that was in the 1A rankings for a little bit earlier this season. And Coon Rapids Bayard, a team who's been in the top 10 pretty consistently all year. They have 2 losses on the season, and I'm pretty sure they were against some. One was against ACGC, I know for sure, a couple weeks ago. And they just beat Woodbine that same week that they lost to ACGC. So that could shake out to be a really interesting way. I think either way you cut it, no matter what team comes out from either of those district championships, like Woodbine, Coon Rapids Bayard, Bedford, Mount Ayr, like it doesn't matter which way you cut it. I think it will be a really interesting pairing for that one to go to the state tournament. Let's see if I can find some other ones. I think this one could shake out to be pretty interesting as well. Bishop Garrigan and Lake Mills play for the District 3 championship. St. Edmund and Newman Catholic play for the District 4 championship. And if the favored teams, which would be 2 ranked teams, Bishop Garrigan and St. Edmund, I think that one could be a really interesting one between those two. However, another one that was, easier to predict than could happen. Lake Mills has the advantage over Bishop Garrigan, although Garrigan's had a 20-3 season, which is a few games better than Lake Mills. Lake Mills has pretty much dominated this match. Pretty extensive history between these two. Lake Mills has the series lead 17-8 according to Bound. However, Bishop Garrigan's taken the last 2. So another one that'll shake out. Could be interesting. A little bit of an upset watch there for Bishop Garrigan potentially. So let's see if I can find any others in Class 1A. I think that's pretty much going to do it. I don't really see. Okay, this is the last one. This will be the last one that I talk about for Class 1A. District 7 and District 8, Sub-State 4. We have North Lynn taking on Hillcrest. So I believe North Lynn's number 6. Hillcrest is number 16. That in and of itself is going to be a good game. A couple of ranked teams, Hillcrest and North Lynn, you could argue maybe a little bit underrated for their respective ranks. And on the other side for District 8, we have Holy Trinity Catholic taking on Burlington Notre Dame. I think Burlington Notre Dame was a team that I was a little bit like maybe should have been in the rankings there at the end of the season. There was a lot of teams for 1A I think you could argue or make an argument for to be in the rankings, but unfortunately they just didn't quite make the cut. And this is their chance to prove that they deserve to be there. This is another one between Holy Trinity Catholic and Burlington Notre Dame that goes back a long ways. And Notre Dame has the lead 28-9, according to Bound, since 2008. But of their last 5 games that they've played, Holy Trinity Catholic has taken 3. However, Burlington Notre Dame take the most recent one just in January of this year. So I think this one will be a really close game. I really hope that somebody will have a radio broadcast or a live stream, because that will be one that I would personally tune into. And on the other side, it doesn't matter, North Lynn or Hillcrest, whoever comes out, that is going to be a really competitive and interesting game to go to the state tournament. So that's going to do it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I'm not sure how many of you would decide to stay and watch this whole thing and listen to me talk about all this, but I think it's really interesting, and hopefully you guys do too. That was just kind of free flow, and I didn't really plan that. I just kind of decided while I was sitting here talking that I wanted to go over that. So yeah, we're not gonna have any game of the weeks. Me and Nelly, we wanted to just highlight some games that we think are interesting, or some pods, districts, and substates that we think could have interesting turnouts. But yeah, that's gonna do it. We'll still have a show next week. We'll be able to talk about the state tournament, talk about the brackets. I might be wrong. 1A and 2A brackets should be done because I believe the sub-state finals are on Saturday this week. And then Monday and Tuesday, we have 3A and 4A sub-state finals. It's going to be moving really fast. Before you know it, we're going to be at the state tournament. We're going to be at the state finals. Any athletes that are listening, just enjoy it, man. This is going to be a really fun couple of weeks. And just take in every moment, and hopefully you guys stayed all the way to the end. I'd be impressed. I can barely even make it through to the end myself, but thank you for keeping up. Like I said before last week, if you didn't see, we're coming in on 10,000 followers on Instagram. If you're not following, please be sure to do so. We're going to do our best to cover the state tournament and all of these playoff games on all of our social medias. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. And we'll see you next week.